Secret Diary of Nigel Stone, age 56 and a half years. Who'd be interested in my story? I'm 56 and a half years old. I'm driving a lorry. So many dead ends, wrong turns, wrong decisions. I've made so many wrong decisions in my life. When I make a decision, I usually do the opposite, thinking I'm double bluffing myself. So if that's what I thought I should do, maybe I should do the opposite. Maybe that would be the right thing there. But yeah, I double bluff myself. I still end up making the wrong decision. So what can I say about me? My youngest memory is living in a village called Haddenham in Bucks, where I was friends with the young lad next door called Nicky Kay. I went to a primary school where I was in a class called Camels. All the classes were named after animals, so Camels was like the intake. There was a Tigers. There was a bully. What was his name? Ollie Gascoigne, that's the one, who my brother got into fights with. My brother was 3 years old. Okay, bit of backstory. The youngest of six, born to what I would consider nowadays geriatric parents. I think my dad was 40 when I was born, something like that anyway. I'll do the maths later on, maybe figure that out. Yeah, so we lived in Haddenham. Beautiful village. When I was little, I recall it being a very long, steep driveway going down to the road. The road was called Townside. So we were, not going to mention door numbers because it's not important. And then at the opposite side of the road was a wall that went round kind of the centre of the village, or an orchard. The Witchet Wall, this thing was called. So my memories are going to be a little bit all over the place because things pop into my head as I'm talking. So the Witchet Wall, if I remember rightly, it sort of had tiles on the top, but it was a stone wall or a brick wall that had a, what do we call it? Almost like what do they call that stuff on the outside of buildings? Like a rendered wall. So yeah, I remember sitting on the bank outside Nicky Kay's house. We were pretending we were cows eating grass, of all things. But when you're 4.5, 5 years old, what else are you supposed to do for entertainment? So we lived in this house. Pretty sure there was still all 6 of us there, so six children, 2 parents. Nice house, comfortable house. Don't really remember much about it. I've been told that my paternal grandfather, my dad's dad, came to live with us, much to my mum's disgust. He liked to drink. No money to speak of. We were not well off. We certainly weren't on Skid Row. My father was an architect, a professional man, up and coming, still trying to forge his career. So okay, so my youngest memory of something that I'm not proud of would be in Camels. Just had another flash of memory. We used to have times where you had like play in the class, so we'd have these big plastic tubs supported on metal frames with wheels on them, and they'd have water in, and there'd be sand, and you could play in the water and in the sand. You'd have these shapes, animal shapes, so you could make a sand animal shape of a tortoise. It's the only one I can remember. But the smell, it was just the smell of it. in the class. My teacher was what I could only describe as a middle-aged lady, with my recollection, called Mrs. Hughes, or Mrs. Shoes, Mrs. Shoes, because when you're young and haven't really found your way yet, that's how the names end up being, Mrs. Shoes. So anyway, I found a £5 note. Where did I find this £5 note? Probably in the area where the teacher's desk was. Where had the £5 note come from? Well, now, as an adult, thinking about it, out of the teacher's handbag. But it was a gift. It was a gift to me. I hadn't had a £5 note before. I hadn't been let loose on the world, and here's money. Go and do whatever you want with it. That's the way my 5-year-old brain was working. It must have been four and a half year old brain. Between 4 and 5. Anyway, I don't remember. I mean, at that age, surely I must have been taken to and from school by an older sibling, and I do remember on more than one occasion walking to school with my brother, who's 3 years older than me. So yeah, we've come out of school. Well, I've come out of school. I don't remember being with anybody, and I've ended up in a shop. And this shop in Haddenham, it sold pretty much everything. It sold toys, sold sweets. And I don't know if I spent the whole £5. Amazing back in 1974 what you could actually buy with a £5 note. There was toys, sweets, all manner of things. So what do you do when you've bought your ill-gotten gains? You go home. My parents, my mother was strict. My dad, very, very rarely around. Obviously, professional man working. So I get home and I've got all these things. It's like, what do you do? Oh, okay. Mother sees them. It's like, well, in my head, this is how the conversation's gone. Where did this all come from? Oh, from the shop. How did you get them? Oh, I bought them. What did you buy them with the £5? Where did the £5 come from? I found it. Where did you find it? On the floor. Where on the floor? In the classroom. Where in the classroom? Over by the teacher's desk. Oh, logically, it was the teacher's £5. Anyway, long story short, back down the shop, return everything, get the money back. And I don't remember any of this, but this must have been how it worked. So £5 is returned to the teacher. Nothing more was said about it. I have this terrible sense of shame that at that age I was already a criminal. But yeah, my parents had a very strict moral code. It's just how it was. So yeah, that was Haddenham. There used to be a fair come to the village every once in a while. When you're little, the fair is massive. So you'd go out the end of the road where I lived, and you go up the hill, which was Station Road. Oh, just had another memory. I'll come back to that in a second. Go up Station Road up to the village green, where there's the church. And on this village green, periodically, I don't know, maybe once a year. I don't remember many summers or anything in Haddenham, so it could have been twice a year, could have been 4 times a year, I don't know. Anyway, the fair was there, and I remember the fair, and that was yeah, that's the big event in Haddenham. Behind the house where I lived, which had the garden with a double swing, was a farm. Mr. Green, the farmer, used to own. I don't know whether it was a steamroller or traction engine, or maybe it was one of each. But every once in a while, probably on a Sunday, you'd smell this thing start up. We'd all go round to Station Road and we'd watch the farmer come out with his traction engine or his steamroller. Call it a steam engine. And just the smell. And every time I smell a traction engine or a steamroller or a steam engine, it's just, I'm straight back there. 5 years old. 4.5 years, 5 years old. Potato picking, that was another thing. My mother used to take me potato picking. I don't know why we did that. I don't know if I actually picked any potatoes, but I was there. And maybe it was a way of my mother supplementing the family income, because back in those days, family income wasn't massive. So let's think about how that works now. My parents started their married life in Gloucester before I was born, long before I was born. And apparently there were 2 other children born to the family that didn't survive for whatever reason. They would have been obviously older than me. So my family goes as me, my brother who's 3 years older, then another brother who was 2 years older, then a sister that was 2 years older, then another sister that was 2 years older, and then my oldest brother who was 2 years older than them, or than her. So everybody's 2 year gap, and then there's me, the mistake, or the experiment, whatever you want to call it. Call it as you will. So I was born to the Stone family, and tiny little thing, shock of platinum white hair. Why white hair? Honestly, I could not tell you. My mother was brunette, my dad was kind of auburn, reddish. So yeah, white hair. Weird. There's actually photographs of me on a beach, which, to the best of my recollection, from what I've been told, would have been painted in Devon, wearing an awful one-piece bathing suit in orange. Who'd do that to their child? Anyway, there's this Sydney film, which I don't know if it still exists, of me, and it's definitely a photograph. I have that photograph of me in this awful toweling one-piece orange bathing suit, looking at the camera. So my dad, when we were holidaying, he had this thing. He would fashion what I could only describe as a speedboat out of sand. So he'd start digging with the spades, and he'd fashion this thing, and this was what I played in as a very, very, very young child. More than a toddler. I don't know what you'd call them between being a toddler and not being a toddler. Anyway, this is something that to this day, when I went on holiday with my children to Lanzarote back in 2012-ish, I did what my dad did. So with the blackish sand in Lanzarote, I fashioned a speedboat. That's it. So it's kind of come full circle there, doing for my children what my dad did for me. So I've got various memories of things that happened when I was that age. I remember a birthday party. I remember there being a spaceman's outfit which I wore, borrowed, wanted. Back when I was that age, there was so many things that I wanted. ask for something, or things were talked about, I didn't get what I wanted. Whether my dreams, aspirations were beyond my family's financial abilities, I don't know. Anyway, there's a few things. A magician. Now, what was that magician's name? Apparently, every kid's birthday party had this magician. Not the same magician, obviously, because he can't be everywhere. But his name will come to me later. So you get to 1974 summer, and I remember going to see a house in Chelmsford that had, what I believe was a monkey puzzle tree in the front garden. Very nice house. My dad liked the house. Being an architect, it was kind of an unusual house. Things like that appealed to him. So a bit of backstory. My father worked for the council as an architect, and he got a promotion to Essex County Council, the architects department in Essex County. I believe he was following his brother, who was also an architect, also in the county architects department. So there's now 2 stone boys in the county architects department, designing, of all things, schools. Because what does a county architect need to do? Needs to design municipal buildings, if that's the right word. So yeah, we've come up to Essex. Didn't live in the house with the monkey puzzle tree. Lived in a house in another village just outside of Chelmsford called Felsted. So we've all moved up here. When I say all, my eldest brother actually stayed back in Hadnam, because when we moved, our family cat, Ginger Tom called Titan, had gone missing. So Ian stayed back to find the cat and to bring him along to Felsted on his motorbike. Yeah, because what else would you do when you're that age? And again, I could do the maths, try and work it out, but it's not important. He was a teenager, he was working. I believe he worked at the Molins factory, which back then used to produce cigarette machines that made cigarettes, or tobacco machines. I've only recently learned that. So you get these flashes of memories, like, oh, where did he work? I worked at Molins. Never heard of them. Do a quick search. Local to where we lived, Molins made those machines. Anyway, so we've come up to Essex, 1974, and obviously summer, so summer holiday. So I've gone from Camels at Hadnam to not infants intake, but the first year of primary school. Felsted Primary. So I'm thrown into all this turmoil. Don't know anybody. Don't really know anything. And my first day at primary school, I meet another Nigel. That's very strange. Another Nigel with blonde hair, blue eyes. And Nigel, to this day, recently I have remade contact with Nigel after maybe a 7 or 8 year break. Not important what those reasons are right now. Maybe we'll come back to that another time. Anyway, teacher, Miss Elkington. Who remembers you had a sheet of paper, and when you were doing your handwriting you had to take the ruler. The ruler was 12 inches long, made of wood, 1 inch wide, and you have to put it on the paper and draw a line above it, and and a line below it, and then move it down to the next line and draw another line, and then move down, draw another line. So you'd have lines on a piece of paper. You didn't have lined paper, not back then. No, goodness me. That maybe would have been too easy. So we're learning how to write, learning how to read, doing all the stuff that normal children do, I guess. There's other people in the class. There's Lee, Matthew, Stephen. We didn't really seem to have segregation like we do nowadays. Where you everybody in your year just hangs about with everybody else in your year. I was Gregory as well. So we had a Malcolm, a Colin, Mark. I think it was in the next year above. But no, Felsted's quite a large village, and it's about a little more than half a mile away from where I lived. So yeah, my first real, you go to school. How do you get to school when you're 5-6 years old? You walk. Does your mother walk you? No, goodness no. No, you've got an older brother that's 3 years older. So you know where the school is. In the morning, what do? You leave the house, you've had your breakfast, you walk to school. Get to the end of the day, you walk home. So it's various teachers came and went, and I recall the headmaster was a chap by the name of Mr. Jessup. So my earliest memory of reading and writing, for whatever reason, I'm sat with Mr. Jessup. Mr. Jessup used to have this odd thing that he used to do. He used to take a rubber. He'd clean these rubbers with his thumb. So we'd be sat reading, and the whole while I'm reading, he'd be rubbing this rubber. And come the end of the book, the rubber, he'd have turned it around in his hand so many times that this rubber would be clean. Anybody ever watches this in America, that's an eraser for you guys. So, what do we read? What did we read when we were 5-6 years old in Felsted? Monster books. Now again, I will warn you, my memories will be a little bit all over the place. I was fortunate enough, when I was running my own business, to be gifted the series of monster books that I read as a very, very young child, which I read to my children when they were 5 and 6 years old, 4, 5, 6 years old. And I'm going to stick this in there for my daughter Mav, saying, oh man, someone's going to get killed in that burning fire. She'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a line from the book. So when my children were old enough to appreciate having a story read to them in bed at bedtime, other than The Hungry Caterpillar, I fell back on what I knew, what I was familiar with. These are the books. They had some very strange drawings in them. Famous artist did the illustration for these books. Anyway, I digress. So we come full back to Felsted Primary, and I don't know why, but for some reason I seem to do okay at primary. I didn't really have very close tight friendships. You know, I was friends with a lad called Jack. I was friends with a lad called Nigel, that Nigel I'm still friends with, and just didn't really have like the really close tight friendships that some of my peers had. I remember going round to some of these lads' houses. I went round to Stephen's house, went to Lee's house. Lee's dad was a lorry driver, so everybody kind of admired Lee. One year he had Truckatronics, which was a remote control articulated 18-wheeler styled on like American Kenworth type thing. Everybody wanted a piece of that. Why is that important? Well, it's not really important, but you have to understand that what I'm doing right now is I'm driving an articulated lorry. That's my job. Is it the job I want? It's the job I went for. It's the job I retrained for. Having installed electronic gates for 13 years, I retrained to earn better money. Now I'm away from home 4 nights a week, home on a Friday, and back out very, very early on a Monday morning. That's my life. Is that what I intended to do when I was a child? No. If I go back to where I actually thought what I wanted to do, what I thought I wanted to do was be pilot officer in the Air Force. I wanted to fly jets, fast jets. Thinking back right now, was that realistic? Was that even an ambition? Can you have that as an ambition? Well, of course you can. I'm sure many people have had that as an ambition and have gone on to achieve that. Did I? No, I didn't. So, what are the reasons for that? Oh, many. Obviously, of course, now I couldn't do it because I wear glasses. I need to have good eyesight to be a pilot officer. I'm sure you can fly a commercial jet and wear glasses, but if you're going to fly a fighter jet, I'm sure you need to see what's there, what's coming, what's happening. So there's a few stumbling blocks on the way to being a pilot officer. Is being a lorry driver my first choice? Not even my second, not even my third, probably not even fourth, fifth or sixth, but it's what I've got. And importantly, I'm now earning more money than I've earned at any of the other jobs that I've ever had. So am I happy about that? Well, happy enough. So we go back to Felsted Primary, and we come towards the end of primary school. So this little segment takes us from 1974 to 1981. So we're getting ready to go into secondary school. Oh, a couple of things that happened along the way. Queen's Silver Jubilee, 1977. Elvis died. I didn't even know who Elvis was. I didn't have a clue. So Elvis has died. Oh, really? Wasn't anything that was spoken about him. Certainly my oldest brother would have been devastated because he was a big Elvis fan. But I didn't know that. So 1981, we move on to Helena Romana's school in Dunmow, and I followed my older brother, 3 years older. He's already made his mark at Felsted at Helena Romana's school. Rightly or wrongly, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Bad thing. So, head of middle school already knew the name Stone. Oh, crikey, he'd had Jackie, Heather, Graham, and Adrian before me. So by the time 1981 came round, we'd been in Felsted for 5 years. So, having come from a small village where there was a primary school and a middle school, and then there was the high school, everybody sort of got lumped into like the one secondary school. Good thing, bad thing, I don't know. But anyway, so whatever mechanism they use to filter you at primary school, I'm sure there's a metric that they use, 11 plus, whatever. And you get setted and streamed for secondary school. So in the year I started, we had HRNS, the initials of the school, held out Romana's school. So the top stream, H, RNS equivalent, and then middle stream, T, B, D, and then the lower stream, E and F, E, F and M. M for like each of the other streams was named after a village in the local area. So Thaxted, Bardfield, none others spring to mind. Anyway, for whatever reason, I was put in H, top stream. There's some pressure. So you are now considered to be one of the elite at secondary school. To this day, still don't understand how that happened. And as you work through secondary school, or at least our secondary school, they subdivide you further. So, for argument's sake, for maths classes, you have to have sets. So if you're in the upper stream, it's expected that you would be in the upper sets. So yeah, guess what? I ended up in set 1 for maths. More pressure. And then they set you for English. So set 1 for English. I could speak and write English, read and write English. So of course. And they do the same with French. So read set 1 for French. I didn't know any French. Couldn't speak any French. Certainly couldn't read any French. My French teacher. I remember my French report that came home. Would it have been the first year? Maybe the first year. I got a very, very low grade. Why? Because my teacher said I never turned up at lessons. I was there for every lesson. Never missed a day of school. Never missed a day. The teacher just didn't know who I was. I was just the kid that sat back, very quiet, very retiring, shy, didn't speak up. The teacher didn't know. And oddly enough, back in those days, you'd get the occasional scandal, like the French teacher was getting off with the woodwork teacher. They got married. Other little scandals during those years where we had 2 gay teachers. Goodness, shock. Unheard of. Unheard of. So, yeah. These things happen. It gets worse. When you're in set 1 for maths, set 1 for English, set 1 for science, set 1 for French, they subdivide you again. So not only do we have houses for sports and other like cross school events, we had colours in the year. So green, blue, red, yellow. Green, blue, red and yellow. So I was in Clawson, that was my house at school, and if you were then subdivided into green, you did a second modern language. So we did German. So you have to understand, I'm 11, 12 years old, 13, and I've been subdivided through no choice of my own into this category where I'm now learning German, I'm still learning French, doing chemistry, physics, geography, history, technical drawing, biology, still back then biology. And when you get to do your options, you get to choose the subjects you want to go on to. So for me, maths, English, physics, English literature, geography, technical drawing, chemistry, and then you have to have an 8th subject, so it's, I think it was 8, electronics and astronomy. That's the lesson that you do during the week where the teacher just doesn't turn up, but they have to fill the timetable. You've still got to be there for all the school hours, but you do 8 subjects at what was back then O-level. So my first real hiccup in my scholastic career was due to a teacher. I'm going to say she was probably 24 years old, used to wear like silky blouses, like shiny, probably nylon, but she had a chest. When you're that age, you kind of take notice of that sort of thing. So there's a teacher, young teacher, she's got boobs. She was so far up herself. It's like, oh goodness me. So anyway, we were set a homework exercise. I've been wanting to get this off my chest for years. I thought about writing a book. I thought about doing a memoir. Who'd be interested? Who'd be interested in my dribblings? Maybe anybody had similar experiences. So anyway, we've done all the usual sort of malarkey in lessons, square roots, times tables, equations, blah blah this, blah blah that, trigonometry, cosine, tangent, sine, area, volume. God, it's amazing what you learn. But we were set this exercise to find the square root of a number to 3 decimal places, show you working. You have to understand, at this point in time, this was where my ambition was: pilot officer, Air Force. Now, to become pilot officer in the Air Force, what you have to achieve, obviously you have to do O-levels first, then you do A-levels, then you go to university, or college, then university. You come out of university with whatever degree, and you go into the Air Force on the officer track, go through selection, whether you become a pilot, blah blah blah. Anyway, long story short, yeah, this is where it fell apart. So we've been given this exercise: square root of these numbers, 3 decimal places, show you working. So I've got another little snippet of information. I had a paper round, and my paper round was probably one of the biggest in Felsted. I had something like 60, maybe 70 drops. So very early in the morning, Mr. Pugh would drop a pile of newspapers on my doorstep. And this is probably where something should have rang alarm bells in my mind. Because after doing this paper round for 2 or 3 weeks, I knew the order of the papers. So the papers would turn up, they'd be bound in that plastic tape. You'd cut the tape open and you'd go, right, okay, News of the World. Okay, say it was a Sunday, no, not News of the World. So The Sun, The Mirror, Star, Daily Mail, Guardian, Times, all the big publications. And I would know every single house on my round who had what. Then you'd get the oddity. One day somebody would have cancelled their newspaper. That means the round would be correct up to that point, and then everybody would get the wrong newspaper from there on, because I would have them all in order in my bag. So it'd be Chestnut Walk, that paper, number whatever, this road. Number 3, that newspaper. Number 5, that newspaper. Number 7, that newspaper. Number 9 had cancelled. Now number 11 have got the wrong newspaper. Number 13 have got the wrong newspaper. So everybody from that point forward has got the wrong newspaper. So at the end of the day, you have to go back round, pick everybody's newspapers up, bounce and wandle down. And for this, I got the grand sum of £7 a week. Now, I was actually doing my paper round to buy a computer, the Amstrad CPC 464. So anyway, I digress. I missed out one very, very, very important detail. The first day at secondary school, I meet another young, timid lad by the name of Adam. Still my best friend to this day. And I guess there's just some solidarity, having met somebody else that just looked as afraid as I was on the bus on the first day of school. And we were fortunate enough, he was in S, I was in H. We were fortunate enough to have many lessons the same. So English, same. Maths, same. Not geography. Don't remember history, but like the important ones: chemistry, physics. So most lessons we were in the same class, the same lesson, the same teacher, kind of the same track. We both did German. Adam's very intelligent, very, very intelligent man. So intelligent, no common sense, but very intelligent. And anyway, homework. So I've got home and I'm starting to do my homework because I was conscientious. How do you find the square root of, let's say for argument's sake, 65? Well, you know it's more than 8 because the square root of 64 is 8. And it's less than 81 because the square root of 81 is 9. So it's on the low side between 8 and 9. So you'd start doing some experimental multiplication. Maybe go 8.1, multiply out 8.1. Is that a bit low? Maybe it's a bit low. Maybe go a little bit higher, 8.15. Anyway, I'm not going to get the calculator out and start working this out. It's not important. But long story short, I got to about 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, and I'm still on the second of 20 of these maths problems. And my dad comes in to see what's going on. I said, "Oh, what are you doing?" So I'm doing my homework. What is it? So I've told him, right, grab your books, downstairs, dining room table. And my dad, again, very intelligent man, he says, "I'm going to show you how to do this." So he shows me. He's not doing my homework. He shows me, he picks a number, and he shows me how to do it. I had to work it out. It's somewhere between long multiplication and long division. So you multiply out, and then the product of that, you use that to divide up. Anyway, I've completely forgotten the mechanism. It's so unimportant, so not something that should have had any bearing on my life, my career, or anything. But it did. Boy, did it. So he shows me how to do this, and I've finished off. No time for sleep now. I've got to literally sort out my newspapers and go and do my paper round. But no sleep. Do my paper round, come back, off to the bus, off to school, handing our maths books at the end of the lessons, and there's a talk going around. Did you do the homework? No, it's too difficult. Did you do the homework? No, it's too difficult. Couldn't do it. One person did it. She had already done A-level maths. She was, I want to say French-American. For whatever reason, there was a French-American at our school. Anyway, she was far more advanced than we were. She had done it. So it turns out that there were 2 of us that had done this maths homework. The books came out beginning of the next lesson, and I've gone straight to my mark. She's not even marked it. I'm devastated, absolutely devastated. I don't know what to do. Do you know, I feel let down. I'm angry. I'm really angry. I just don't know what to do. I don't know how to deal with this betrayal. So anyway, end of this lesson, smug bitch. She's got a stack of SMTP log tables, which is like a supplement. Our secondary maths was called the SMP, the Secondary Maths Project. And he had books that went from A right through to Z, every letter of the alphabet from A to Z. Maybe not every letter. Anyway, that's the curriculum, the maths curriculum. You work through these SMP, Secondary Maths Project books, get to the end, and you've learned maths. So these log tables, she's thrown in one of these onto every desk, and she says, next lesson I want £1.30 from every one of you for these SMTP log books. These log books will show you the square root of every number from blah to 3 decimal places, so you don't have to do all that working out. This will show you the sine and cosine of certain numbers or certain degrees. Just look them up. You look them up in a log table. Somebody else has done the work. They've done the hard work, so you don't have to. Miss, I did the hard work. My dad taught me something you didn't. So yeah, that betrayal, that kind of stayed with me, and from that point forward, I would have to say I stopped trying. And I was sat next to a lad. I used to copy his homework. Or I used to copy his work. So whatever he wrote, I wrote. He got it wrong, I got it wrong. And eventually the teacher spotted it and sent me to the back of the class. Oh, that was a big mistake. So at the back of the class is a heater. And when you're bored and your mind is not being engaged, and I can speak for this, you tend to get rather tired. So now I've fallen asleep in her lesson. Not good. So what happens? Long story short, myself and Adam, we get thrown out in set 1. Why Adam? I don't know. Perhaps there was something going on with him as well. But we were both at the back of the class at that point. So we both got thrown out of set 1. So take your stuff, go next door to Mr. John. Ooh, Mr. John. Mr. John was head of middle school. Everybody was afraid of Mr. John because he was head of middle school. He was very strict. Very strict. So we've turned up. Ooh, it's Welsh as well. I won't try and do the accent. Oh, what do you boys want? We've been told to come here and join your class. Ah, right. Okay. Take a seat there. Take a seat there. Now, what you have to understand about Mr. John was probably the best teacher I ever knew. Mr. John was so attentive. He would teach you something. It would be on the board, show you how to do it, and then you would go and do it. And then whilst you were doing it, he'd be wandering around the class looking to see if everybody had got it. And he had this uncanny knack of being able to spot if somebody didn't get it. And if one person didn't get it, the whole lesson stopped. You went back to the board. You didn't embarrass the person and say, oh, this person hasn't understood, let's mock this person, or take the piss out of this person for whatever reason. Mr. John would go back to the board and he would go over it and over it until everybody got it, and then we'd go back to our work. And again, he'd be monitoring the class. Yes, everybody's understood. Now I can move on, go on to the next subject. So, yeah, I actually came out of school with a Maths O level thanks to Mr. John, by the skin of my teeth. I also got an English O level, a technical drawing O level, and a physics O level. I like to think that my mind is quite logical. So when we think about physics, what happens if you drop something? It falls. Physics. I keep using that with my children, saying physics. There you go, physics, gravity. And then you explain the laws in between that, ground, and everything else. Immutable laws of physics. So, anyway, set 2, we actually finished the maths syllabus before set 1. Mr. John, very, 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 very funny man. Absolutely hilarious. He just knew how to connect with his pupils, with his students. I'll never forget him for that. And I'll always be so thankful that that happened to me, that somebody was able to engage at least in some part with my mind and get me through O-level maths. So, a whole lot of digression there. Loads of other things that happened in between times. Obviously, the story of the friendship when you are a teenager. So there's girls in our class. There's girls that go to Girl Guides in Felsted. Of course, I was friends with Adam and we lived in the same village. We both had bikes and we ended up stopped at the end of our lane. Freshly cut grass smell in the air. And these girls have come out of their guide hut. They've walked past and it's like, oh, girls. And somehow or other we end up in a conversation with these girls, 2 in particular. And turns out that not only do we go to the same school, we have many of the same classes. And we also have CB radios. So, in these days of social media and the world being interconnected, I live probably a mile away from my best mate, and I spend much of my time talking to him on the CB radio. And when I finish talking to him on the CB radio, I go and get on my bike and I bike to his house. And then we mess about at his house. Mostly at his house, not at mine. Most of the people I knew at school didn't want to come to my house because my parents were, by this point, quite religious. And that just brought a whole other set of crap along with it. So, girls. 2 girls, Girl Guides. Chemistry lessons together, biology lessons together, that was fun. Physics lessons together, maths, English. They lived a little way from where I lived, so it was a 4-mile bike ride to go and visit. Back in those days when you're a timid young 13, 14 year old, suddenly I've got a girlfriend who I see at school, but I don't socialise with at school. Oh, that would be can't do that. But we socialise out of school. My throat's actually getting sore. I'm going to have to stop now, and I'm going to revisit and come back to this. Maybe I'll post this for my young daughters to have a look at, say whether they think I should carry on. But for right now, I'm going to sign off. 1983. Let's leave it at 1983 because there's a couple of other stories that go along with school and that sort of thing that I've done with. So anyway, thanks for listening. If anybody did, maybe speak to you later.